I'm Dr. Jack Bender, and welcome to this video series designed to help you prepare for the unit tests you'll be taking in the self-paced sections of Philosophy 120, The Principles of Reasoning. And congratulations for choosing to study introductory logic. If any course at the university will teach you to think more clearly and precisely, it's this one. Now, I'm afraid we're not going to be able to make these videos as interesting as MTV, but what we will be doing is giving you a sneak peek at the sort of material you'll encounter on the daily tests that make up the course. In each of these 13 video sessions, I will work through a sample test and give you tips that, with some luck, will help you to master the necessary material. Feel free to use these videos as often as you need to. Today we will cover Unit 1, and you will learn how to distinguish an argument from a non-argument, how to distinguish the premises of an argument from its conclusion, and some other important general facts surrounding arguments. In the first two exercises, you must identify an argument's premises and conclusions. Let's go to question 1. More than half of all mothers with children have jobs, and the number is increasing. Whatever its problems, daycare is indispensable. The conclusion of this argument is daycare is indispensable, and this is because the premises of the argument provide reasons to believe in the indispensability of daycare. More than half the mothers with children already have jobs, and that number is increasing. Obviously, both reasons to believe that daycare is important. Number 2. Great strides have recently been made in cancer treatment. The cancer rate among young people is lower than in the past decade. Breast cancer has been brought under control in many cases, and in general, people are seeking earlier diagnoses. The conclusion of this example is the first sentence. Great strides have recently been made in cancer treatment. And just like question 1, the reason for this is that the premises of the argument give you reason for believing or provide support for this conclusion. Great strides have recently been made. Cancer rate is lower than in the past decade. Some instances of breast cancer have been brought under control, and in addition, people are seeking earlier diagnoses. In the next couple of problems, we will be determining whether a passage constitutes an argument or not. Number 3. If a man and woman spend a great deal of time together, then they are likely to fall in love. Is this an argument? Well, notice that we have here only a single sentence, and the sentence is of a conditional form. That is, it's an if-then sentence. And no single conditional statement constitutes an argument for the following reason. The if-then statement really does not assert the truth of either a man and a woman spend a great deal of time together or the likelihood of their falling in love. It rather only asserts that if they spend a great deal of time together, then the result will be that they'd fall in love. You need to actually assert the premises in an argument and also the conclusion of the argument for a sentence or a set of sentences to constitute an argument. Number 4. The Bengal defense is much stronger than the 49ers defense, and their quarterback is on a hot streak. Surely the Bengals will win the Super Bowl. Here we have an argument whose conclusion is the Bengals will win the Super Bowl, and again we see that the premises provide two reasons to believe that conclusion. The defense of the Bengals is much stronger, and their quarterback is on a hot streak. So clearly an argument in this case. And the last one of this sort, number 5. There is presently a dangerous summer warming trend. Scientists say that this may be the result of the so-called greenhouse effect. This deterioration of the ozone layer itself is due to the world use of petroleum-based products. Well, this is a harder one. Do we have an argument here at all? No, in fact, all we have is a conjectured explanation of the dangerous summer warming trend. In fact, we have a chain of explanations. Notice that the reference to the greenhouse effect is meant to causally explain the summer warming, and the deterioration of the ozone layer is meant to explain the greenhouse effect. And remember, explanations and arguments are different. In an explanation, you explain to an individual why a certain conclusion is true. With an argument, you attempt to get them to come to believe the conclusion on the basis of the premises. Now, in the next section of the Unit 1 test, we'll deal with a number of definitions of central concepts. And there's none more central than argument. An argument is a set of statements. It's a set of statements because it contains both premises and conclusion. And there's a very special relation between the members of the set. It's the relation of reasons giving. So an argument is a set of statements, some members of which, namely the premises, are intended to provide support for the other member of the set, which is the conclusion. Number 7. A conditional statement. We've already seen a conditional statement on the test. A conditional statement is a singular statement of the if-then form. The part of the statement which follows the if is called the antecedent. The part of the statement which follows the then is called the consequent. And remember, no single conditional statement constitutes an argument, though it can, of course, be part of an argument. It can be a premise or a conclusion of an argument. The last definition, inference. An inference is the actual mental process of moving from belief in certain sentences to the belief in a related statement. Inferences are related to arguments in the following way. An argument, in a sense, captures or states an inference. When you move from one belief or a belief in a couple of statements to the belief in the conclusion, you've performed that mental process which is expressed by the statements composing an argument. The last part of the Unit 1 test is a series of true-false questions. If the answer to these is false, you'll need to explain why it's false. Number 9, the words for, inasmuch as, therefore, and because all are premise indicators. This is false because the word therefore is quite clearly a conclusion indicator. The other words in the question are in fact premise indicators. Number 10, arguments are used to explain the truth of their conclusion. Well, we've already talked about the difference between an argument and an explanation, and number 10 here then is false because arguments don't function to explain their conclusion. They rather function to provide reasons to come to believe the conclusion. An explanation, remember, tells you why a conclusion, which you're probably already willing to accept, is in fact true. An argument is an attempt to get you to come to believe that that conclusion is true. Number 11, even in a bad argument, the premises must give support to the conclusion. Well, what's important here is the idea of actually giving support. Notice that the concept of an argument is meant to include both good arguments and bad arguments. Ask yourself, what makes an argument bad? Well, an argument is bad when the premises actually fail to give support to the conclusion in the way that the arguer intended. So, even in a bad argument, the premises must give support to a conclusion? No, though it is true that in a bad argument, those premises are intended to give support. It just so happens they fail to do that. And number 12, the last on the test, the conclusion of an argument must always be explicitly stated. Explicitly stated? Most of the time, yes. But sometimes it's clear that a person is arguing when the conclusion need not be stated because it's so obvious what the conclusion of the argument is. If I say to myself, for example, if I drink too much over Halloween weekend, I won't be able to study for my final exam on Monday. But I need to get an A on my final exam on Monday. So, notice I don't need to actually state the conclusion. it's obvious that the conclusion is, I ought not drink so much over the weekend. And that concludes Unit 1. Tune back later and we'll go on to Unit 2 and the rest of the course. See you then.